Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to explore a truly fascinating, highly specific instructional manual on developing mesmerism and mental conditioning. And what we have here isn't just some abstract theoretical document. No, this is a literal step-by-step training manual. It lays out exactly how historical practitioners believed they could harness internal energy to influence both themselves and the entire world around them. We're going to break down the exact methods, the timelines, and even the physical tests laid out in this text, just to make these esoteric concepts incredibly clear. Here is the practitioner's journey we are about to follow. We'll quickly cover the three core elements of mesmerism, move right into relaxation of body and mind, look at the practice of Trotak and concentration, explore how they developed willpower and self-confidence, and finally, we'll get into the 4 tests of power. All right, starting off with Section 1, the 3 core elements of mesmerism. Now, what's really interesting about this is that before any advanced practice or outward projection of power can ever happen, this foundational internal architecture has to be built. The source states that a piercing gaze, known as Trotak, is the active tool used to influence people or even put them to sleep. But, and this is crucial, the text absolutely insists that this gaze is entirely useless on its own. It literally has zero power unless it's supported by 2 internal pillars, deep concentration, which they call ekagrata, and absolute willpower, or ichcha shakti. So without that internal focus and the iron will driving it, staring just doesn't do a thing. To explain how you actually gather this internal focus, the author uses a really striking, practical analogy. Imagine a bull, totally yoked to a cart. If you want that exact same bull to go pull a plow in a completely different field, well, you can't just hook up the plow while he's still lugging the cart around. You have to unyoke him first. You have to free him up from his current task. The text argues that your internal energy works the exact same way. Right now, your energy is completely tied up in your normal bodily functions, your senses, and your wandering thoughts. To redirect all of that power into mesmerism, you must first completely unyoke your energy from your physical body. Which brings us to Section 2, relaxation of body and mind. So the manual doesn't just casually tell you to relax. It provides an incredibly detailed protocol called Shithalikaran. This is the deliberate process of completely detaching energy from the body's organs and halting all movements of the mind. So the crucial point here is that we aren't just talking about taking a deep breath to chill out. Total physical and mental detachment is the ultimate prerequisite. The text insists that until your body's energies are entirely relaxed and withdrawn, they cannot be successfully centralized and projected. To actually achieve Shithalikaran, the environmental requirements are incredibly strict, pushing for an extreme level of isolation. The text demands a secluded, quiet place, think like a deep forest if possible, or an isolated room in a house. You must strictly ensure zero interruptions. The lighting is critical too. The room shouldn't be pitch black, but dim, maybe with just one window slightly open. Why? Because the author explicitly notes that bright light causes a type of mental excitement that scatters your focus. Physically, you're instructed to use a lounge chair with your legs stretched out or lean back against soft cushions, spending 10 to 15 minutes trying to make your body feel utterly lifeless. You're aiming to feel as if the life force has literally exited your physical form. Once your physical body is paralyzed in this lifeless state, you have to quiet the mind. The text provides a very specific visualization technique for this. I want you to imagine, right now, that you are floating alone in an infinite, endless blue ocean. There is absolutely nothing else around you. No land, no people, no sound. Just the endless blue. Whenever a wandering thought tries to enter your mind, you're supposed to gently but firmly push it away and return to the silence of this vast, empty ocean, holding this state of mental stillness for as long as humanly possible. Next up is Section 3, the practice of Trotak and concentration. It's only when your mind is as calm as that endless blue ocean that the actual act of work begins. Now, while outward Trotak involves staring at a flame or a mirror, this preliminary practice is entirely internal. The manual instructs the practitioner to keep their physical eyes closed. Instead, you're supposed to use what the text calls your divine eyes. You must focus your mental vision on a single point located perfectly between your eyebrows. Right in that spot, you visualize a small, intensely bright, sun-like point of light. Concentrating your entire being on this imaginary internal sun is the exact mechanism the text prescribes for supercharging your mental focus. Moving right along to Section 4, willpower and self-confidence. But focus without an engine behind it just isn't going to yield results. Here, the manual shifts from visual focus to intense psychological conditioning, and this brilliantly illustrates how the source material merges deeply spiritual concepts with highly practical psychological exercises. To build supreme willpower, you have to mentally condition yourself to act as a localized center of immense power, completely rejecting any intrusive thoughts of weakness or inferiority. You are to view yourself as intelligent and virtuous because, as the text argues, you're a fragment of the divine source. And since that source's infinite power, you fundamentally cannot lack power. Fascinatingly, it also instructs practitioners to literally chant their own name out loud while holding this pure, powerful self-image, all to rapidly build self-confidence. Now, if you're wondering how long all this training actually takes, the author lays out a very specific timeline. This is absolutely not an overnight process. From day one, you have to begin practicing the relaxation, the internal Tratak gazing, and the willpower conditioning concurrently. According to the source, 3 months of this dedicated daily practice is the absolute minimum time required to achieve what it calls workable power. And for solid, reliable results, the text sets the expectation at around 6 months of continuous practice. So let's say you've done it. After 3 to 6 months of sitting in dim rooms, visualizing blue oceans and internal suns, a major question naturally arises. How do you actually know if you have successfully gained this power? Well, the author doesn't leave this up to guesswork. They provide a precise physical rubric for success. Which brings us to our final part. Section 5, the 4 tests of power. Think of these tests as the crucible, real-world protocols outlined by the author to prove your internal energy can actually affect the external world. The first test is all about human influence. You are instructed to stand quietly behind someone who is completely unaware of your presence. Then you focus your piercing gaze, your newly developed Tratak, intently on their spine, right between their shoulder blades. According to the text, if you've successfully developed your power, that person will begin to feel a distinct restlessness on their back, and they'll be physically compelled to turn around and look at you. The second test is wild because it shifts the focus away from human psychology and attempts to influence the natural world purely through sheer will. The manual instructs you to find a small insect on the ground. Using a stick, you draw a small circle around it. Then, you project your absolute willpower, silently commanding that the insect cannot cross the line. The text claims that if your power is genuine, the insect will repeatedly walk up to the line, fail to cross it, and turn back, essentially trapped by nothing but your projected intention. Let's move to the next one and see how this builds, because the third test moves straight into the realm of direct telepathic influence. You are to seat a person in a completely different room, entirely separated from you. You then project a very specific, strong thought or emotion directly toward them. The text states that a successful practitioner will cause that exact same thought or emotion to spontaneously arise in the mind of the isolated subject at that exact moment. The fourth and final test involves what early mesmerists referred to as making passes. You have a subject bare their back. You hold your fingers about 1.5 inches away from their skin, making sure to never actually touch them. You move your hands repeatedly from top to bottom and bottom to top. The text claims that after a short time, the subject will begin to feel a distinct tingling or itching sensation, and they'll report feeling an invisible substance entering their body. Crucially, the manual states that even if you strictly blindfold the subject, they will still physically feel the energy and know exactly when your hands are moving near them. So what does this all mean? What happens if you try drawing a circle around an insect or staring at someone's spine and absolutely nothing happens? Well, the text addresses this directly in its closing remarks. The author's final advice is that failure is actually incredibly common early on, and you must never give in to despair. Instead, failing just means your internal battery isn't charged up enough yet. You are instructed to keep practicing, dive right back into that endless blue ocean of your mind, and continue building your focus. It really leaves us with a provocative thought about the immense, unwavering dedication required by practitioners of these historical esoteric arts. The sheer amount of mental discipline demanded here is absolutely staggering, regardless of what you might believe about the final outcome. It makes you wonder, would you have the patience to sit in a dimly lit room for 6 months just to test the true limits of your own mind?